Good morning. It's great to be here with you all. I'd like to take you on a little bit of a journey that we've been on at HubSpot over the last 3 years or so, leveraging AI not only in what we build for our customers, but also how we built it. We've hit a few walls along the way, learned some lessons, and I'd like to kind of share those with you. Firstly, to give you a little bit of context, if you don't know a lot about HubSpot, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary last month, and we build a go-to-market platform for largely small and medium-sized businesses and enterprises. And that means we're building software that helps marketing, sales, and service teams across that full go-to-market journey as they bring their products and services to their customers. And we have over 300,000 businesses today that depend on HubSpot for their go-to-market journey in about 140 countries across dozens of industries. And that means we get a view into what's going on across a wide variety of companies of different scales and in different regions. Okay, so with that, what do we hear back mostly from customers today? It's the word actually inserted into this question that's been around for the last couple of years. How do I actually transform with AI? Not just run pilots, not just play around with it, but actually deliver real value at scale for the company. And what we found over the last 3+ years on the journey we've been on is that the tools themselves and tool chains are just a starting point. They're not enough. And how you approach it makes a big difference. And one of the big, somewhat unexpected learnings for us over the whole process is we were focusing on initially, how do we build differently with AI? And it turns out a lot of those learnings apply to what we need to build for our customers and how we need to meet them on their journey. So what happened is we started back in 2023 or so with the early stage co-pilots. We'd moved beyond code assist into the early stage co-pilots. But what we found was those systems off the shelf couldn't work at our scale. So we were doing about, at the time, about 1 million builds a day across over 10,000 microservices. It's more now. And we were just running into walls. And a lot of it was around the models being very good at understanding coding problems generally, but not understanding enough about our business and how we work. And we had to address that. We could wait for companies to catch up, the tooling companies to catch up, or we could dive in and try and solve the problem ourselves, and that's what we chose to do. And there's really 3 learnings that came out of that I want to share with you today. And they're around flexible infrastructure, complete and trustworthy context, and then the notion of meeting customers where they are. So let's dive into the first one, flexible infrastructure. So we started out with these co-pilots, as I mentioned, and what we found pretty quickly is they didn't understand nearly enough about our tools and tool chain. We had over a decade of building our own custom tools and tool chains, and of course models are trained on data that's out there in the world and didn't have any access to how our particular tools worked. So unsurprisingly, they struggled a little bit with that. So what we did there was we built a bunch of MCP integrations in the very early days of MCP that allowed us to bring more knowledge about how our environment worked directly into the co-pilots themselves. We also pretty early on built what we would now call an agent execution platform or an agent harness. We actually built a containerized approach that made it very easy for us to spin up sandboxes where test loops could run in an entirely automated way without any human intervention. And that made it very lightweight for our engineers and very safe and secure from a reliability and security point of view as well. And overall, through this whole process, one of the things we didn't do was mandate engineers that they had to use AI in how they built. We really wanted to take engineers on the journey, show them how different and powerful an experience it is, and have them adopt them themselves. And it turned out one of the big blockers to that was engineers were very concerned about reliability. We put a lot of time and energy into building an incredibly reliable platform because it's mission critical for the go-to-market teams and our customers. And engineers were concerned it was going to introduce reliability issues. So we brought data. We looked at what was happening with some of the early areas where co-pilots and beyond were being used, and we were able to show our own engineers that there was not an impact on reliability, that reliability remained neutral despite the addition of code generation coming from these other platforms. And in fact, skipping ahead for a moment today, where we are today is reliability is actually increasing with the result of agentic coding and how we do it today. And those early wins got us to about 80% adoption, which is pretty good. This is 3 years ago, across our thousands of engineers, and about a 51% improvement overall in productivity and velocity. That's a composite metric measured from a variety of different things, because we don't like to over-rotate on a single metric like PRs or lines of code. But we knew we could do more, and of course, the technology was advancing as well. So when we started building this infrastructure, as I mentioned, one of the interesting things is we started to learn that it actually had a big impact or potential impact on how we build for our customers as well. So one of the lessons that we're able to bring to customers is you really can't depend on a single vendor or model family for everything. Not only are the models obviously changing and improving all the time, it's a little bit of a horse race, but they're jagged in different areas. And when you apply them into very specific areas, as we do with go-to-market, we find that different models, model sizes, vendors are better, right tool for the right job. So we were pretty early to this notion of we need a way to run evals, to do A/B tests against model sizes, and it's not as simple as quality or evals overall. We think in terms of a mix of three things: quality, latency, and cost, in that order of priority, and solving for that. Because every individual task within the hundreds of go-to-market tasks that we build agents for today actually has a different value proposition around those three. Some are low stakes, where the quality bar does not have to be quite as high, even though it's still high. But it's a bulk process, and cost optimization is super important even early on. And then there's other tasks that are very high stakes, particularly when the HubSpot platform is going to do something that interacts with one of our customers' customers, for example. So that was one. And so we built this abstraction layer. Again, today what we would call an agent harness, and it's a lot more sophisticated in 2026 than it was in 2023. But that allows us to very easily, under the hood, swap out models, do those evals, do those regression tests and comparisons against them. And that's proved to be incredibly powerful. And we built that abstraction layer in a way that frees feature teams up from having to be involved in any of the plumbing that goes on underneath to support that. They can create their evals, they can run them against a variety of models, swap models in and out with no regressions, without having to be involved in any of that. And that's turned out to be a huge advantage for us in building for our customers and then delivering what they need. Okay, so at the end of the day, that's really all about the shared foundation. Do that first, not last. I say that because often when you're trying to get going and you think about lean or you think about getting to MVP, there's a temptation to use a single stack for everything. What we found is that is a little bit counterintuitive to that energy put in up front around things like harnesses that gives you much more control over your own destiny, your ability to do these evals and swap models in and out, to be able to make changes to how an agentic loop runs, is incredibly powerful, and it's worth doing that early on. And of course, today, it's a lot easier to do that. There's a lot of phenomenal solutions out there. Companies like Fireworks are doing amazing work in this space. That's number one. Okay, number two, let's talk about context. And we very deliberately talk about the comprehensive nature of it and the trustworthy nature of it. So when we were building initially, and we moved on to autonomous coding agents, the agents needed to understand, of course, our code base, our conventions, and the environment. And we had all of this tooling that we'd been building over the last decade as well, and we had to get beyond even MCP here, allowing the coding agents to be able to understand everything about how our build chain worked. And a lot of the time and energy that we had to put in there to get much more effectiveness out of even frontier models was backfilling all of that context and bringing it to bear. And getting context right is hard. It's not a matter of just hitting a context window limit or dealing with context drift. It's also the fact that there's effectively an overfitting problem, that if you just throw too much context and the quality of it isn't good, the specificity of it is not good for the task at hand, you get poor results out of it. So getting that right turned out to be a skill that it was worth building and a platform capability that was very valuable to us. And adding that into how we built internally actually got us to 96% of engineers using AI, and this would be early 2025. And we were at a 60% improvement in velocity, so both numbers up a little bit from where they were. And then when we looked at how we would apply this to our customers, well, it turns out across the go-to-market journey, there's a lot of different things that you need to do. and a lot of different agents, whether it's a prospecting agent or a customer support agent, and being able to deliver the right context at the right time allows you to drive significantly better outcomes in terms of quality, performance, and cost. So it was critical there. And we saw dramatic changes. For example, an agent that builds an outreach email as a follow-up to a sales demo went in about 6 months from a sales rep needing to edit it about 2/3 of the time to make some changes, to make it in their voice or to correct something, to them sending it without any edits 2/3 of the time. So AI knows a lot about the world, but you need a platform that knows your world at the end of the day, your business. And most of that data is data that exists only inside of your business and not out in the world and therefore in the models. And the last thing is meet customers where they are. This was really all about how we actually took that shared platform. Internally, that meant taking shared tools, shared primitives, building on the shared platform. Every agent anybody builds makes all agents better because it contributes to the overall context and the actual agent platform itself. And what that allowed us to do was get to essentially today 100% of engineers using agentic coding to build at HubSpot. And to give you some other metrics, 73% increase in lines of code and a 90% reduction in the time to first feedback on PRs. So that velocity was rising even as the quality was rising. And as I mentioned, reliability actually went up as well for customers through all of that. So at the end of the day, we also then realized that we needed to go and meet customers where they are with all of this technology. So as a SaaS vendor, historically you'd thought about how do you keep customers inside of our UI? But we actually let go of that entirely and realized at the end of the day, the value we needed to deliver for customers was how do we make this intelligence that we build indispensable wherever they work, so deeply integrating into Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT so the customers get the full power of our agent platform and our context right there inside of wherever they might be working. Of course, many customers still choose to use the web or mobile UIs, or they use our own Breeze Assistant as well. But we have full parity across those for customers, and that turned out to be a huge win for our customers and for us. So at the end of the day, it's all about getting the foundation right. And what we found is if you don't get those foundational pieces right, it does start to plateau out. But once you start getting them in place, you get this incredibly powerful compound interest that starts to deliver incredible value, not only for how our teams build, but then also for what we're able to deliver to our customers. Thanks so much.